Coming up on Tarvalin After Dark.
I love making Jess explain her jokes.
I want to get hit by a shark.
What's so cool when it's wet, wet, wet?
Lesbian goggles.
The light illumine you, and welcome to Tarvalin After Dark. My name is Jess, the Amerlin Seat, and I'm here at the Thirsty Tinker, Tarvalin's most disreputable inn, located in scenic North Harbor. Hail and well met, beloved listeners. It's been like a year and a half, but we're back. We're going to talk about episode 8 that happened like a month and a half ago. That's episode 8 of The Wheel of Time, obviously. But first, let me introduce my partners in debauchery, Nameless, Kevin, and Jenny Sedai. Hello. Hello, friends.
Sup all.
Hello.
We're not dead.
No.
Well, no, we were busy, so.
I'm mostly dead.
Someone went on yet another cruise.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, look, they're all free. Like, literally, they're free cruises.
Look, nobody's criticizing, but I think we're all wondering how are they all free? Like,
well,
I
because
understand
they're gambling.
I understand, like, conceptually, like, yeah, you go to the casino and then they're like, hey, we need to get this guy back. And like, but like, how many have they sent you at this point? Like,
they could do you can literally do as many as I want. I get new offers every day.
That's fucking crazy.
So, and I don't even gamble that much. Now, I did hit the next tier for their cruise, for their, what do you call it? Yes, for their casino rewards program. So I get free alcohol basically forever in the cruise casinos now. But
knowing how much you drink,
yeah, it's really helpful for me.
That's very helpful. Yeah. So, question: when you go on these cruises, like, where are you going?
So it doesn't really matter to me because unless it's going to a new port, I rarely get off the ship. But usually the Caribbean. Okay. So, like, this particular one I went out of, yes. Well, I spend lots of time outside, as you can tell. I'm known for how tan I am.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, you tan about as well as I do.
I am a vampire, so I avoid the sun at all possible. But this one was to Mexico, so Costa Maya, and Cozumel Island.
Okay.
Fun.
Other ones are the Bahamas. I've been to Key West. I've been to Puerto Rico. I've been to Jamaica.
Oh, you've been to the water around Puerto Rico.
Yeah. You haven't gotten... She's saying you don't get off the ship. Yeah.
No, I have gotten off the ship. I just usually don't anymore because I've been to the places before and I don't need to see them again. So.
Okay.
I would like to tell a story/joke about being super pale because I am. I was outside with the dogs sitting in the grass and I was wearing like crop pants and the lower part of my leg was like glowing in the sun because I am so very, very pale. And so I posted a photo of it in the group chat, and Kayla, aka Master of the Deck, roasted me so thoroughly. All she said was, Gondor calls for aid. And I'm like, God damn, that was raw, but she's not wrong because the sun was reflecting so brightly off of my skin.
That reminded her of when Gimli blew the horn of Gondor. What?
No, Gondor calls for aid. That's the Helm's Deep, dumb fuck.
I know.
I will come to wherever the fuck.
I love making Jess explain her jokes. They always get funnier when you do that.
Yes, as we have determined, they get funnier.
So, we are actually going to do so. Here's a good segue to promo some shit. Because, we'll start with the connection and then we'll get to the actual promo. But we are going to do, after Jordan Con, it seems as though people are still, I got asked by just about everybody, are we still doing the WatCon cruise? Are we still going to do the cruise?
Are we still going to do the cruise?
We are. So I'm waiting. we're going to do it. It'll probably be in November of this year. So we will do that.
I need a job.
They are fun. It's basically, they're probably, I would say all in, depending on where you live and what a flight costs. It's probably cheaper or as expensive as going to something like JordanCon. Because, I mean, I don't have the final pricing yet, so I really don't know what it'll be. But usually in my experience, right, with these group rates, that's about what it is. And then you won't spend any money on food because it's all on the cruise ship, right? And the thing I like about cruise ships for something like this, and maybe this will be, you know, if the show gets canceled or people get tired of doing in-person events like WatCon itself, maybe the cruise becomes the replacement for it one day, because it's what we all get together to do anyway, right? Like we get together to eat, to drink, to hang out, and have fun together. The Wheel of Time is just the reason that we use to do that. So, right, we could do all of those things on a cruise ship in a very contained environment where you can't really get in trouble and all of that. So they're a lot of fun.
Challenge accepted.
Jess is going to flip off the end of the ship.
Fuck yeah.
Woo! She's going to get so drunk she wants to dive in.
Oh no, then there'll be like that shark attack. No, don't do it, Jess. Don't do it. I won't film it.
I want to get hit by a shark.
Baby shark? Ding, ding.
Do-do-do-do-do.
Okay. Kevin loves Baby Shark, I'm sure, because you've got a
I haven't
kid
had
that-
to hear it in like 4 years, and I'm
Really?
I'm really well, yeah, because they stopped listening to it after they're 2.
Baby
so
Shark. Dang, dang.
Dun, 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 dun,
That is such an effective earworm.
It is. That's
It's a
why.
really
The person
Yeah.
who came up with that should really be killed.
You mean the marketing lab that came up with that?
I don't know who came
Because
up
it was a
with
marketing
that.
lab.
it's
What's
Pink
really-
Fong. Pink
Yeah,
Fong.
yeah.
It's a Korean
Well,
company.
Well, the
Burn it down.
the connection to the pitch there, though, is to talk about WatCon, because
Yeah.
here's the deal, peeps. Here's the deal.
Hey y'all, Jess from the future here. How's it going? So we recorded this episode on May 18th, and I'm finally getting around to editing it on June 21st. I had some pretty serious mental health issues going on, so I didn't get to it, but I'm doing much better now, so don't worry about that. However, everything that we said about WatCon in this episode is grossly out of date, so I'm just going to cut it out and replace it with the following. Firstly, in-person registration for WatCon is closed. We are going to have a banner year this year. We have 270 in-person attendees. That's the most we've ever had. And 80 of them are coming for the very first time. So we are super looking forward to making all of these new friends. Secondly, virtual registration is open. Our AV people put a ton of work in to make it so that you can stream every single panel or watch them on demand later, including all the main stage stuff. And you can actually even participate in the panels through chat. So they really put a lot of work in to make that happen. We also have roving reporters on the floor of the con talking to people, and they're I can talk English. There are exclusive interviews with our guests that are actually only available in the virtual format. Our guests this year are Maria Simmons from Team Jordan, Kate Redding and Michael Kramer, the audiobook narrators, and our guest of honor this year is Sharon Gillum, the costume designer from the Wheel of Time TV show. These virtual tickets are available all the way through to the end of the con, so you have plenty of time to grab them. And as a side note, the virtual content is included with in-person membership, just in case any of you are wondering about that. So for the hotel, we've extended the room block, so you have until June 27th to book a room Friday through Sunday at the con rate. I don't know about the days after the con, but I know the days before the con are sold out. So like the whole hotel is sold out. So if you want to come to Columbus early, like Wednesday or Thursday, you're going to need to snag a room at a nearby hotel for those nights. There are a couple that are super close to the hotel, like easy walking distance. And I'm not talking about like a half a mile easy walking distance. I'm talking like 300 feet. You can see it from across the parking lot. Easy walking distance. So there are definitely very convenient options if you need them. So that's the WatCon update. You're welcome.
If you're interested in coming to WatCon at sea, or WatCon on a boat or whatever we call it.
WatCon at sea.
Yes.
Arr, me heart.
Arr.
Yes.
And we will make all kinds of Ileana pirate jokes.
Yeah. So it do be WatCon.
Dude.
Talk like an Iliana.
Ruby WatCon.
And you have
Oh
to
my
talk
God,
that
that's
way the
hilarious.
whole time we're there.
The whole
Oh
time.
no.
This do be easy to do.
Oh boy.
Oh,
All
Lord.
right.
By my aged grandmother.
WetCon. I love that.
What's so
Nils,
cool when it's
that was
wet?
Although, Nils, hopefully we are not getting wet at the cruise. That would be bad. We hopefully will not sink the ship. Are you coming to both WatCon and WetCon, Nils? I hope so. WetCon. That's great.
It's very good.
Oops, I didn't do that. I did not mean to hit that one.
This
Yeah,
is not
right.
going to happen.
Because that won't be happening. Actually, they won't
No.
let you do that, really. Like, you can
Won't let
try.
you do what? I missed it.
There are
Share
different
free
types
drinks.
of wet.
Oh.
I actually was thinking about the different types of wet when you said that. I was like, why are you hoping that nobody gets wet? Oh, because of the boat.
Oh,
That was what I was
yeah.
thinking. No!
Yeah, Jenny. Let's get wet at WatCon.
Oh,
Get
it
it
worked this
wet.
time. Oh,
Get
so
it
that worked.
wet.
There we go.
Get it wet.
No,
Get
I'm
wet.
flipping you off.
WatCon is going to be
wet.
so wet.
That does the opposite of
Oh
make me
my-
wet. Like it seals me up. It just turns me into a Ken doll.
Right. And
Talk about
Yeah.
a river of ejaculate.
Oh, yep, nope.
That's what we're cruising on.
Oh, yeah.
Ah!
It's a river cruise on a river. Oh, shit.
Yeah, so I won't be attending. I'll just let you all know this now.
Okay,
Oh,
this
man, what-
is a Wheel of Time podcast, and we have bantered for
no,
way
it's
too long.
not.
It is. So let's go.
It's not.
Let's talk about this episode 8 thing.
What happened in episode 8?
Lots of stuff.
Lots and lots of
I meant to
stuff.
rewatch it, actually. I'm trying to think.
Well, so I think this has actually been. I think this is probably a fair take. My opinion is separate from this, but I will say that I think this has been a controversial episode 8 for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
Is that a fair way of putting it?
I
Very
think
much
that
so,
it's been... There were some contentious choices made.
They did make some choices, certainly, that I think understandably could be upsetting. Jenny was really happy with the episode. This was her favorite of the series, I think.
Yeah.
Well, and as we
100%.
know
yeah.
that everything that she thinks about this is related to being lesbian.
Yeah,
Mhm.
100%. Yeah,
So-
no other thoughts. I think only through my lesbian
No thoughts.
goggles.
Just
Yes,
gay.
lesbian goggles. No, I think it is a mixed episode. I will say, from my opinion at least, I think this was, of the finales so far, I think this was the best of the finales. That's
Agreed.
my opinion. Now, does that mean that I loved it? And no. Do I understand some of the choices they made? To a degree, yes. Like, I understand maybe, yeah, we'll talk about that. So, I think let's open this up as maybe a start to before we get into, I think, the controversies of it, let's start with saying, like, what did we like about the episode? That's probably a good place to start.
I liked the land fear. Well, most of the land fear stuff. Like, I really liked the true power and the way that was done.
Yep.
The way when she would channel the true power, she would like turn her body. She moved her body in a different way.
Yep.
I thought that was really
Uh-huh.
cool. There was there's a grace, and especially with the Age of Legends people, to the way they channel the one power, like almost a science to it. And then when she channels the true power, it's like she's contorting into like it's inhuman. It was cool. I thought
She
that was
turned
really
into
cool.
an agent from the Matrix who's dodging bullets, is what she did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah, she definitely got three heads at one point.
Keanu
Yeah,
Reeves.
yeah.
Yeah, I thought the land fear stuff was cool. I thought the setup for that was a little convoluted and stupid. Sometimes they just make stuff happen to make it set up what they want to happen. I thought the whole like, hey, let's piss Lanfear off right before this really important moment that we're about to have was kind of dumb.
There are a few scenes like that where the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, okay. And then the second time I watched it, I was like, well, that scene could have been pulled and replaced with another scene that we needed. It's like, what was that? There was just a plan that nothing happened.
Hey, let's she's coming after Egwene, but she's just messing with her in dreams. Let's deliberately provoke her and piss her the fuck off right now.
Yeah.
Hey guys, it's like you forget that the Wonder Girls walked into a baited trap on purpose because they wanted to be the bait to spring the trap in order to cause the plan to call into motion for their own favor. It's almost like this is a very Robert Jordan-esque type plan for the heroes to come up with.
Correct.
I will agree with you, Kevin, on that.
Yeah, it is pretty weird.
The problem with the plan, like, if it had like resulted in a disastrous failure, that was real. What this resulted in is, okay, let's go do something else now. Like, it was just. It was
a little bit. It was anticlimactic. Yes.
Ah, she didn't show up.
Yeah.
She didn't show up.
I thought it was funny.
All right, let's go. Let's leave. I guess.
If it had failed dramatically, that would have been cool. But it just.
I love how the other thing I thought was funny about this is then they start walking towards Alkir Dal, and Ruark is just kind of like, oh yeah, my granddaughter that died. I'm not even going to mention her.
Well, that's the Aiel. They're not. They don't really. They don't really.
Yeah,
talk about death like
but
that.
like they do though.
Not really. They don't really talk. When someone's dead, they're dead.
Yeah. Life is a dream.
So you don't think it's odd that we never saw a mention of it?
I don't. I think it's not something that. It's not something I think is odd. It's something I didn't.
I didn't notice it until you brought it up.
Yeah, it's something I didn't notice or miss because it wasn't there. If that makes more sense. Not to say that if it had been there, I would have been like, this shouldn't be here. But it's more of a because it wasn't there, I didn't think twice about it. But
we're supposed to be talking about stuff we liked.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. So what else did we like from the episode?
I think that kind of across the board, the Finn thing went over really well. I thought that it was well done.
Yeah.
And I have been well and truly proven wrong. They went there. I've
been well and truly proven right. Sorry.
Yes, you have. Please gloat your heart's content.
Gloat. Is that how you gloat, Kevin? What?
Just like arms, jazz hands,
and your tongue flickering.
Patreon.com/TarValonAfterDark if you want to see that shit. Come on, guys.
Yeah, you do.
Watch me gloat.
Weird and disturbing.
Yes.
You definitely want to pay to see that nightmare fuel.
It's got to be somebody's fetish. Okay.
You know what? There's something for everybody out there. I really enjoyed Matt and Min, per usual.
Yeah, they are good.
I also really enjoyed Tom and Elaine.
And
yes, the
good characterization there. Yeah.
That was all really, like, I want to say pretty much everything in Tanchico for me was big thumbs up.
I think that was probably the. I'm excited to try this because I usually do this every season. I want to watch like a single plot through. Like I usually cut the pieces out and I'll watch like a single plot from episode to episode all the way through and just see how it all connects. Yeah, it's a fun way to do it. And I feel like without doing it yet, that the Tanchico plot felt the most narratively cohesive. Like it has a very distinct kind of like, it feels like almost like more of a traditional story baked within the story. Like it is the C plot of the Shadow Rising to begin with. And it feels like it was a very strong, like strongly written, strongly consistent. It feels like that probably wasn't subject to many rewrites as like other plots or as many cuts due to like having not enough people on set to do bigger scenes. Like it felt like that one more or less was able to execute on all of the ideas that they had, which I think really made it feel.
I think it was the best plot. I think it was absolutely the best.
Yeah.
I think Tom I would love to see them make Alexandra Willem a main character, right? Part of the cast. He
really
adds so much to. I mean, we already know that Tom does that, but like, I actually really like his portrayal of Tom.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like I think Tom in the books is good, but Tom is almost a caricature for a while. Like he's this wise old man, but like the I don't know, the mustaches and the flipping, and like he just doesn't seem like a realistic character in the books all the time to me. I feel like Alexandra Willem's portrayal of him has been very grounded and like he does look like a knowledgeable guy with no shit. And
yeah, he doesn't feel like Book Tom to me, but I like him a lot.
Yes.
Like
I feel he feels like Book Tom. He feels like all the best parts of Book Tom, minus like what Nabe said, all of the sort of caricature-ish posturing kind of. Book Tom leans a lot more into sort of the Gleeman kind of like overly performative kind of Gleeman stuff. Like he brings that in a lot. Book Tom or Show Tom doesn't do that as much, but he has all of the like really good parts of Book Tom. So yeah, I really hope that we have him throughout season 4 because he is an excellent addition. And I really loved the interplay between him and Elaine as they're talking, and they really effectively communicated the idea that like Elaine does actually know him. She just doesn't remember him very well because she was extremely little the last time that she saw him. But like laying out the history of him in the court at Camelin, and then like I felt like it was really tight the way that they revealed the fact that there is no Lord Gabriel. Like that's fake. That's nothing. And it had to have been a Forsaken. Like I thought that was well done.
That's good. I also like that it very neatly made it. They're not going to do the whole Elaine flirts with him storyline,
Thank
which
God.
is great. Because like, what the fuck was that, Robert Jordan? What the fuck was that?
Elaine is a bit more aware of her, of herself and her body and what she wants out of life, and knows that she doesn't have to chase her mom's ex.
They have basically turned Elaine into Hermione in this. I think. I feel like she is the focused. Like I'm the achiever. Like that's what they've done.
I mean, that is Elaine in the book. She is like the scientist. She's the one who's like, I'm going to study things, and it's great. I love, like, even her mention of like delving into the earth for metal. I was like, oh, that's Elaine would do that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like that's an Elaine thing that they pulled and gave it to her. But I was like, that's Elaine loves that sort of stuff. She's a scientist. It's amazing. Kevin, are you disagreeing? Kevin is our
trying to find a way.
He is our Elaine expert.
I'm contemplative of the comparison. Do you mean novels or films?
Probably more of the films,
because I feel like the films is definitely much more of like one criticism of many that I've heard of these films is that they take many of the characterizations of the trio of the characters and they give the smartest, best characteristics to Hermione and take those types. They sound kind of similar, where they take some of the moments from one character and they give that to the other person to bolster their character development for the sake of the medium. And one thing I've heard a few times mentioned is that they worry about Elaine being the one that solves everything, or over naive, or taking things from one person to another. And that's why I'm unsure about the Elaine connection, because I'm.
Well, I think that it's appropriate for them to give those moments to Elaine, because let's consider, of the Wonder Girls, who is the one who has spent a significant time studying, who has spent a lot of time reading, who is learning about different cultures and shit like that. Like, it's obviously Elaine.
Yeah.
Because the Nynaeve and Egwene didn't do that where they lived. They, I'm pretty sure, didn't have a library. So... it makes sense to me from a sort of character background perspective that Elaine is the one who's going to have done the reading. She's going to have learned about the cultures in sort of like, you're going to be queen, so let's learn some shit kind of perspective. it makes sense to me that she's the one who's going to pull out that knowledge because she's the one who has it.
Yeah.
If Nynaeve or Egwene did that, like, how the fuck do you even know that?
Yeah, because then you have to set up like, oh, there's Nynaeve reading a book on the ship about.
Yeah, like
yeah.
It's just,
which she can't do because her head's in a bucket.
Exactly. Which, let me tell you, that whole thing with Nynaeve being seasick was just like so perfect. And like that moment where they said something about like Nynaeve throwing herself off the side of the ship, and she's like, "That's an option."
Yeah, that was a good moment.
That was like chef's kiss, Italian hand gesture. Like, thank you. That is so good.
So what do you think about? I want to come back to a point because it's more. I don't want to call it on the negatives, but it's more on the gray area of a question about the series. So I want to come back to a topic you just brought up, Kevin, later. So I'm just reminding myself. But
pin.
What do we think of Nynaeve breaking her block?
I have an interesting.
I had literally 1 hour.
I want you to go.
Therapy session about Nynaeve's storyline this season. I'm really irritated.
I have to watch that video still. I saw that. I saw you post that.
Yeah, to be quite. There are things in the finale I liked. I thought the season was amazing. I have had trouble. I've rewatched most of the episodes. The only reason I've rewatched the finale recently is because I watched it with my sister. I just can't go. It made me upset because I feel like they've shafted her character a lot. Yep. And like her breaking her block was necessary because the show like made her block debilitating. So having her break it early, I think was 100% necessary. But even like I had this reaction, and then my sister, who I did not tell about, had literally the exact same reaction to me as me when watching her break her block. Was like, okay, good, you broke it. Now go actually do your fucking job. Like, what are you doing?
I have a reason.
I think Kevin and I might have the same reason. We both did the index finger thing.
Yeah, you did. But I'm probably going to fundamentally disagree with your reason.
No, and I think it's totally fair because this delves into me making kind of logical connections where there may not be none until they show the season if it comes. Nynaeve obviously broke her own rule, which was if you find it, leave. She told everybody that, and that's a very Nynaeve thing to do. Which we knew
that she was going to do that. I felt that 100%, the minute she said it.
And when Leandrin was shuffling around, she threw a few things in the box, including the collar and a collar that looked almost identical to the collar right next to it on the ground at the same exact time. So there's a very good chance she could have picked up both, identified the other. It's a decently compelling idea there, but I do get your point that if that happened, she's technically completed her mission because Leandrin has the fake. She goes and finds them and they escape. So I do get what you mean, but that was where I've
heard that theory. I just don't buy it, to be honest.
Leandrin didn't look in the bag. She didn't even need a fake. She puts it in her pocket instead of in the bag. She gives the bag to Leandrin. Leandrin doesn't look in the bag to make sure that it's even there, and she leaves. So it seems clear to me that like the reason that Nynaeve didn't go after her is because Nynaeve didn't need to go after her. Because if we have learned one thing about Nynaeve this season is that she is bullheaded. And
I don't think we have learned that at all this season at all. Yeah.
See, I think like here's the thing. They have very clearly to me set up that Nynaeve is absolutely bullheaded, but she's fucking scared. And when she gets scared, she freezes, which is a very common reaction that many people have when they are scared. Okay. Yeah. So whereas you and others have said that Nynaeve got shafted this season, to me, like she has like you see her consistently failing as an issue. Like for you, it's a bug. For me, it's a feature.
What the hell? Okay.
I thought audio only.
Yes.
He disappeared, and I'm like, I guess he really did not like what I had to say about that because he's like, fuck you, I'm out. For you, it's a bug. For me, it's a feature. I think it was absolutely 100% intentional, and she's starting to start getting her big wins next season. And I'm not saying that you have to like it. Obviously, you don't have to like it. But for me, like they set her up this way for a reason, not because of a lack of respect for the character or anything like that, but because like she doesn't get her moment yet. Like she got her moment at the very end of the very last episode. Next season, we are entering our Nynaeve era, and it's gonna kick ass.
Right.
Like, but they set this like, I don't know, I like it.
Right. I will say, like, I understand that, but to me, that is not Nynaeve's story. That's a completely different character story. Nynaeve's story in the books is not her failing and because of her fear. Nynaeve's story in the books is her thinking she's failing and having imposter syndrome. And Nynaeve has imposter syndrome. She's not an imposter. Like that, literally in the books, when she defeats Moghedien, in the books, she like kicks her ass, binds her, gets the collar, and then tries to take her back to the Tower for Justice. And she fails at taking her back to the Tower for Justice because Jain shows up with the balefire rod. And because of that, Nynaeve thinks she failed the mission. That's Nynaeve's thing, is constantly, I think I failed because I didn't get like everything that I was supposed to get. Whereas in the show, her assessment of herself as failing is accurate. Like they've taken her imposter syndrome and made it that she's an imposter. And
they're setting, but here's the thing. What we had was a lot of opportunity because we got to spend a lot of time inside Nynaeve's head in the books, is we got to set up that imposter syndrome because we got to see what was in her head. So we're visually seeing her succeed, and in her head, we're like, God, I fucking suck at this. Whereas we have to show we can't tell in a TV show, right? So we're seeing her fail, we're seeing her fail, we're seeing her fail. She's obviously going to have a lot of trauma because of the stuff that she fucking failed at, right? Now she's finally broken her block. She is now 100% going to reach her full potential, and she's still going to think she's fucking failing because all she's done for the last three seasons is fucking fail through no fault of her own. Like, she was blocked. There wasn't anything she could do about that, right? So we're setting up the imposter syndrome to happen going forward because, like, there isn't any other way that we could have done that outside of some really weird, awkward dialogue about Nynaeve talking about imposter syndrome. You know what I mean? Like,
her apologizing,
and I can understand that you don't like the way that they set that up, but like, if Nynaeve's entire sort of storyline is imposter syndrome and overcoming it in a TV show, we have to set up the reason that she has it in the first place because we just can't do it the way that they did it in the books. So I think that we're going to see that more accurate characterization of Nynaeve going forward. We just had to set it up.
Yeah, I don't know. I like the thing I said to Naves after I watched the finale was, if they end it here, I'm going to be mad. And I remember you, Naves, said you'd be mad anyway. I'm like, no, it's different. If they ended it with Nynaeve's character being what Nynaeve's character actually is, I'd be like, well, they did. I'd be upset that the network didn't renew it, but I wouldn't be upset with what they've done with her character. Whereas right now, if they end it, like I got into it with somebody in the comments. Not got into it, we didn't get into a fight or anything, but someone in the comments was like, I don't understand why you don't like Nynaeve. She's so much nicer in the show. I'm like, well, fuck that. You've literally said why I don't. Why? Like,
no, she's not supposed to be nicer.
No,
like, that's
Nynaeve is not.
That's not a positive.
She's not nice. She's kind, but she's not nice. And like but I didn't like her in the books, right? But people in the show, like my sister actually said the words to me while watching it. She's like, I don't understand why you like her. She said those words to me while watching the finale because what she's seen is Nynaeve be useless for 2 seasons. And it's like, yeah, that's really what she's done.
I largely agree with you. However, I would also add, in the same way that a lot of people that were saying the same thing about Matt last season, Nynaeve isn't really likable until we start getting to this point for her anyway, right? Like, because I don't think what you're talking about, Jenny, I agree with you, because Nynaeve is my favorite character, and I agree with everything that you've said. I think that arc doesn't become apparent, though, until we start to see her character progress a little bit more, because I think the first read of the first couple books of her comes across as this nasty bitch, basically. Because that's how she comes across.
Well, she comes across rude and bullish, and that's the that when that person said that, I'm like, if people didn't like Nynaeve because of her personality, I'd be like, yes, that's fine.
I think that's what I see most of the people who say that, unfortunately.
Like, they're not. They know she's nice in the show, but that's not who. You haven't seen
I've
her
never
fully.
heard anyone call Nynaeve nice in the show personally. That's very
Yeah.
funny to me.
I
I've
think
seen those,
what I'm just disappointed in is I just feel like I feel like they went overboard in season 1 with giving her these like
Yeah, they peaked her
explosion
really
of power moments that they shouldn't have done because it peaked her character power too early, I believe. And then since then we've gotten basically her doing nothing, and that just is not entertaining. I'm just going to look at it from a pure entertainment perspective. Like, it's boring. I wish that even if they wanted to save the Mogideon face-off for a future season, which I can understand why they want to do that a little bit, because they don't want to... I think they like Mogideon as the villain, and they don't want to essentially depower her this early. So I can understand that, but I wish that there had been at least a better face-off with Leandrin.
It did.
Or her doing something other than parting the Red Sea. Like, just do something more than that.
Something.
Well, you didn't like the Charlton Heston act? Come on.
No. I mean, it looked cool, but it just went on for so long, and all I could think is Nynaeve is not a person who stops and marvels at things. Like, that's... No. Like, she's a woman of action. She's a woman of action. And I felt better. I will say I did feel better about it after that conversation with Jen that I did on my channel, but it's still... The frustration that I'm having is I'm seeing, like, the amount of... I know Reddit is what Reddit is, but the amount of posts that I saw immediately after of people being like, why is Nynaeve even in the show? I don't know what her point is in the show. And the people that I have actually gotten to watch the show, literally one of them consistently forgets that Nynaeve exists. And the other one would, like, at the end of, like, talking, because she'd always want to talk to me after, like, having a consultation about her child, would be like, oh, let's talk about the show. And then at the end be like, oh, right, who's the character that you said you liked? That girl. Okay, now let me... Yeah, she... Like, they're not remembering that she's there because she's not having an impact.
Did you guys ever talk to normies?
Her later.
When normies watched Game of Thrones, did you watch?
Normies.
Yeah, did you talk to normies about Game of Thrones when it was coming out? Because that's exactly how they talk. Because they're half paying attention and they're texting or they're on their phone or they're scrolling, and this is a kind of show where...
But they're remembering other people. They're remembering other people.
Trust me. But when it's not their plot line that they want to tune in for, oh, here comes the phone. Let me just scroll for it's back to the plot. Trust me. I've watched watch parties with those types of people. That's how they watch TV shows.
So it's interesting. I wasn't like thrilled with Nynaeve's character arc this season, but I wasn't as upset about it with you, Jenny. The arc that I'm the most upset about in the season actually is Egwene. Well, Perrin too. Egwene. Only because, like, I think Perrin's is a result, and I'll just say I feel like I confirmed this at JordanCon, speaking to some people. That is the result of them having to cut the vast majority of what they shot.
I would not be... There are some obvious cuts there. There's some obvious cuts. Yeah.
The arc that I think that they made more deliberate choices that I'm upset about is Egwene. And... because where I feel like Egwene's character is off, Egwene from the books would have never chosen to go to the waste for Rand.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're trying to carry on this situationship, whatever this is, for way too long. Because they've ended it and then it's back every other time. And I guess that's realistic, but that's just not Egwene's motivations. In fact, they established that in episode 1 of season 1. That Egwene's like, yeah, but Rand, if I have to choose my future or you can fuck off, basically. And I'm not faulting Egwene. That is Egwene, right? That's Egwene. Yeah. Egwene is the most ambitious character in the entire series, right?
Well, I think it's important to make a distinction here that she didn't go to the waste, and I think that it's clear. She didn't go to the waste because she's in love with Rand. She's not in love with Rand. We know that she's not in love with Rand. She is loyal to Rand. She's fucking ride or die. And she's not going there because she's like, oh my God, I love you so much. She's going there because, like,
true,
you have some shit that you need to do.
True.
And I'm here for you.
But
because you are my best friend and I'm here for you. And so that's why she went. Also, they needed to get her to the waste so that she could learn how to dream. Now, of all of the stuff in Egwene's storyline, her going to the waste because of Rand, that doesn't bother me. the dreaming stuff, I feel like got really shortchanged. Like her training montage with the wise ones has not gotten the time that I would have liked to
that's
see.
inherently thematically where I could make the same argument, and I don't want to sidetrack into this side conversation, but I could make the same argument about your Min is a lamp, right? A sexy lamp, because I could argue Min was doing a lot of the things she was doing to support Rand and be loyal to him too. But again, the way that reads, though, or the way that this came across is that she did go to the waste for Rand, regardless of the reasons, rather than she went to learn, which is what she did in the books, right?
Well,
I do wish that they had, that's the tweak that I wish they had made, is I wish she had her dreamer moment, right?
Before.
Where she ran into a Mies before, and that's why she chose to go.
I mean, that's fair.
That's what I wanted to see.
Yeah.
I guess I fundamentally disagree with the idea that the fact that because there is a difference between going to the waste with Rand because she has feelings, like capital F feelings for him, and wants to try and keep the situationship going, and going to the waste with Rand because she knows that he has to do something huge there, and as a friend and someone who's known him her entire life, wants to be there for him and to support him, knowing that there isn't anybody else going that he can truly trust. Mm-hmm. Those are two very different motivations, and I think it's an important distinction to make. And I think that they made that distinction. She didn't go there because she was riding that dick. She went there because she wanted to help him.
Sure. Again,
she wanted to be there as a support network.
I don't disagree, but the other piece that I think I had issue with, and I just didn't like it, was the way that she said "fuck the White Tower," basically.
That was kind of a non sequitur.
Yeah, I did not like. First of all, I don't like that Swan. They made Swan look weak throughout the season, which I just did not like that characterization of Swan, because there is a zero chance that Swan in the books goes, "Oh, sure, Gawain, now that you've got your accepted ring, you can just leave." Like, you don't get to say to the Amerlin, "All right, you gave it to me. Fuck you, I'm out." Like, you don't get to do that.
I will say, I do think non-book readers didn't notice that, because as a book reader, that was something that kept distracting me. Of like, no, it's an accepted ring. It's an accepted ring. But I think that non-book readers didn't get that at all. So I gave a little.
Well, I think that that's important because they needed to illustrate the fact that Swan's power is very quickly waning. Because if she had been coming out strong out the gate, the rest of the tower, or at the very least the sitters present who would willingly vote to depose her, that wouldn't have made any sense. Like, they had to set up her being deposed. That
wasn't really
they had to set up her power. Really? You didn't think so?
No.
Because I thought that they set that whole thing up really well.
If they had made comments of like, why did you let an accepted go? Or, that kind of thing, they didn't.
Oh, you meant specifically the Egwene part. I was talking like the arc throughout the season. Like, you saw her very quickly throughout the season losing more and more.
It was I didn't think that they really did set that up. I think that I liked that Elida did the manipulation. Like, I thought it was a little convoluted, and a lot of things had to go right for that to happen. But getting most of the sitters out of the tower so that
that's classic Elida, though. Like, failing upward.
That was good. The piece that I thought was dumb, that there's a 0% chance, like Elida walking into her, calling her river trash when she's not even a sitter. Like, you would so quickly end up in a fucking cell if you did that to the Amerlin, right? You don't get to do that. Swan sitting there and taking it was a little.
That was a little bit Aes Sedai Serenity, would you say, Nabes? That was
my take on that was
her reaction was nothing, though.
I know.
Well, that's what her reaction is supposed to be. She can't show herself being impacted by that, because showing herself being impacted by Elida pulling out these things that are probably still to this day an area of what's the word that I'm trying to think of? Sensitivity or
a trigger,
lack of confidence. Like, if she gets pissed off by that, if she has any reaction to that whatsoever, she's going to show that she's affected, and showing that you're affected is weakness.
I was gonna say,
So
like,
she
that
sits
to me.
there, and she just sits there and takes it and is like, okay, thanks for your feedback.
Yeah, like
later.
that to me.
Like, there
seems to
wasn't
be, like,
any other way that she could have reacted to that. Because then she would have shown that she was affected, and showing it that you're affected by something is weakness. And by that time, Swan is desperately trying to cling to the threads of her power. So, like, she's in a no-win situation there,
I
really.
feel like you and I watched completely different seasons of that.
I
Like,
think that
I
we
didn't
must
feel like
have
she
watched
was
very
clinging to
different
threads
seasons.
of power. She
See,
really had all... I can't... okay. I'm going to try to get a word in while the dog's there. I think when we talk about clinging to threads of power, I don't think that there was really any point that she was really shown to be that until the very last scene. I don't think they did a good job setting up that she was actually losing power. I think they more emphasized the fact that Elida politically maneuvered. I thought that part was done well. I did not think that Swan was shown actually politically damaged throughout. Like, in fact, she seemed fairly in control up until that little maneuver at the end. So
I saw some other stuff, but
she made mistakes. Go ahead, Jenny.
The contrast between the way that Swan reacted, like, I actually thought that was setting up something that will hopefully come later if we get further seasons, of the way Swan reacts to people versus the way Elida is going to react. Like that, honestly, not to get too, but I was thinking, it's gonna, like, Elida's gonna have a Trump reaction to people saying anything remotely negative to her. Swan doesn't care. Yeah,
100%.
Just like any normal human who's just you don't like me, that's fine. Like, that was what I thought that they were doing with that.
I think it's really interesting that Nabes and I had such completely different interpretations of watching the exact same thing, because it seemed really obvious to me that things were unraveling from the very beginning of the season. Human.
That's art, baby.
Beings are.
That's art.
Yeah. Well, like, even like Morghese coming in and being a little defiant with her, and then Liana being like, "You need to do," like, they were doing what they could to set it up.
Yeah, but see, this is the distinction, though. Those people doing those things don't necessarily mean that her reactions are the correct ones. That's the problem that I have, is not that they did those things, but that the Amerlin would never have allowed those things to happen. Okay? And yes, I'm not saying she should have thrown a hissy fit when like, that's not what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. But
you can sit there silently, but there would have been a result of that. Like, that was actually stupid political maneuvering from Elida, right?
Well, the result of that was that she set her up to be for the Black Aja cell. That was the outcome of that little throwdown session, is that she set her up to be exposed,
well,
right?
Yes, but that is not what I'm talking about, though. There's penances. There's things that would have happened, right? That's the issue, is how she responded to these things. Like, Morghese being pissed. Morghese is a ruler of the most powerful nation in the world, right?
Well, she also got smacked down in front of the entire hall.
She did. So I didn't think that was a shot at Swan's power, actually. I thought Swan handled that very well. I just was not a fan of the way that I think, and again, it's a different Swan from the books, and that's okay. But this is not the powerful, sharp Swan. This was a little bit more of a shaky, not confident Swan, who the entire time was not sure she was doing the right thing. And I think that really started last season, because
Well,
Swan
she also
trying
sent them
to
to the eye too. I mean, she had probably had a Shamael dreams, which is why she sent them to the eye as well. So I mean, that really Maureen's failure was her failure in that way as well.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I wasn't sure about that. Now, I do.
Yeah,
I think
it's okay that you're wrong.
I think this is a good transition to, I think, the more controversial piece. And I want to lay the setting for this before we get into the discussion, right? And that is, of course, offing Swan at the end. Now, I think one of the things that we can probably largely, at least I would say on a basic level, agree with, I'm not necessarily loving that they have ended Swan's character arc. but I can understand why they needed to do it. Sophie Akinato was one of the most expensive actresses on the show. And so for her to basically play a side role in the future seasons, right, that Swan plays, they could not justify what they pay her to keep her as a part of the show. So it makes sense to write her off in a sense. Now, I'm talking financial sense. That doesn't have anything to do with storytelling. It doesn't have anything to do with any of the rest of it, right? I think we could probably agree with that. Well, I know that factored in to their decision making. That being said, right, the way that they did it, I will say I predicted this years ago that I thought they would off Swan here, because I think that arc isn't necessary. If they had to cut characters going forward, because they can only have so many recurring. I think it could make sense. Like they're offing. That's why they did the same thing with Loyal. They're trying to trim the side characters. That being said, right, what is your reaction to how they did it, why they did it, right? Thematically, maybe some of the optics of what they did, and maybe the choices there. So let's that's maybe a good setup for that conversation.
I liked it.
That's the end of your thoughts.
Full stop. I liked it. I know that a lot of people disagree with this, but from a storytelling perspective, I didn't expect it. I was absolutely shocked, but I wasn't mad. For me, like, Swan knew from the get-go the risk that she was taking in handling the situation the way that she did. And if memory serves, not only in the books, but also in the show, she said, I could get fucking killed for this. Like, she knew the execution was on the table from the very beginning, from the minute she and Moiraine started this shit. She knew that execution was on the table. She knew. And so she gets caught out. She gets deposed. She gets executed. To me, I was shocked at the time, but it was a logical progression of the storyline. What she did was tantamount to treason. She went against Tower law and custom. And just because you're the Amyrlin seat doesn't mean that you get to do that with impunity. So I was fine with that choice. I think it's interesting the way that they did it with, I think we can probably all agree that her final monologue fucking slapped. It was amazing. Like, I thought, and this is a testament to the caliber of these two actors, that just Swan's fire, and then Elida sitting there like stone, and she didn't move, but you saw her shrink into herself. Her expression didn't change, her body didn't change, but somehow you saw her shrink into herself, and this look in her eye of just abject terror, like, what the fuck have I done? Because she didn't have all the information when she went ahead and decided to execute this coup, right? And the fact that before she could even react to what Swan said, Alviarin said, oh, we already voted, and you're out. And then executes her right there before Elida can do anything. Very telling, very intentional. So overall, while I will miss Swan as a character, while I will miss Sophie Okonato's characterization of her, narratively, overall, I thought it was a good choice.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk about the Swan of it all.
Kevin, what do you think?
It's a complicated one, because one thing that I go out of my way to make sure I don't do is I don't speak for other people, particularly things that don't represent me, and I try not to put my voice in or interject it, especially as a white man. White men, take note. It's a very important skill to learn, when to not insert yourself. It's a very, very important skill.
You can learn from Kevin.
So just take some minor notes. It's very easy. So what I will say is that the aspects of it that impacted a lot of people very strongly are not things that directly impact my lived experience. However, I think that the hardest part, the reason why this hit so hard for so many people, kind of has to do with the marketing of it all. And I think that if you think about the people who are the most upset, and the hardest part about this is like they're not a monolith. They're all individual people. They have reasons on an individual basis why they feel the way they do. And it's I think that a lot of people probably felt embarrassed, to say the least, like because they've gone out of the way, and this show has been maybe a breath of fresh air for a lot of people. They're like, this won't be the show that does this thing to me, and that's killing off half the couple. It's a very common sentiment I've seen, and I empathize with the embarrassment that these people might feel where they don't need to, that they've gone on and they've recommended this to their friends, and they've gone out of their way to say, this is the show, this is the one that's finally not going to do it to us. And then it did. And again, I'm not saying that it's a perfect, everything about it is super easy to digest or break down into little bite-sized things for tweets, because they're not. These are great conversations to have in person with people, but it's really hard to do this nuanced online, which is why I didn't do it online after the finale. I did it in person at JordanCon, and I had these conversations in person with people at JordanCon and people who it does impact. So it's complex, because I have all of the same justifications and all the normal stuff that I do for the narrative. I have my own read on the situation, and then I have all these other people's feelings in my head. So it's the hardest scenario in the show so far for me to have an opinion on, because it does feel so anomalous until we know what's going to happen for more. But even beyond that point, just like, I felt sad in the moment knowing that there were a lot of new friends that I'd made through that extension of the fandom that I was probably going to start losing. And I did. I lost a lot of good friends that were like, I'm done with the show now, which was, disappointing. And I understand that they're choices. But I think that's partly why I think that this choice was as hard as it was, is the way the show marketed it. And again, not every love story can be a good love story, but not every love story has to be a bad one either. So I get why the tragedy of it all is acceptable for some and is hard for others. So I don't know. That's kind of where I land on it. I said a whole lot of nothing probably, but I empathize. I empathize. I don't disagree with you either, Jess. I do think that there's a lot of it that I think that there's a lot to love that is distracted by people who can't understandably see past the one gratuitous moment, especially the head kind of the cutaway shot to be like, yes, she is actually dead kind of stuff. And it's a tough one. It's a can of worms. And I hope that I hope people who are hurt by it are able to I hope the show is able to do good by you if you do come back to it. If you don't come back to it, I understand. But man, it was a choice that can't have been easy to make, and I think that there's more they could have done. They've obviously got no problem changing stuff, so I think that it would have been interesting to see. But I am glad that Liana is alive. I am glad that it seems like she and a few others are going to be making that part of the story still happen. But yeah, that's kind of how I feel.
And I want to interject really quickly and just validate you and say that I don't think you said a lot of nothing. I think that
Thanks.
You are exhibiting a great deal of thoughtfulness and empathy. And I think that you're a great person.
Doing my best. That's all I'm ever doing, is do my best. I'm a goofy guy. I mostly like to lean into the goofy, and I try not to get too serious. So if I'm getting serious, it's because I've done a lot of thinking about it. So I try not to be impulsive, because
we love that about you.
My nature is impulse.
So Jenny, what I saved you for last because I know you have thoughts, because we've talked about it at length. So yeah.
I'll get into the dead lesbians of it all, I guess, after. But the thing that I think, honestly,
a lot about how that's the biggest issue is the dead lesbians.
Honestly, it was, it's a thing that I had to step back from, because it was just, people don't listen to the words that come out of my mouth. They just assume that they know what I think. It drove me a little bit crazy.
Yeah, for people who aren't aware, and I think that everybody who's not in our group chat is aware that a lot of people were assuming that you were very upset about the dead lesbians part of it. But that was actually at the bottom of the reasons why you had issues with this.
Yeah, there was the cherry on top of the cake, and it was a bit like of the thing. And my issue with it personally, and this is not just, obviously it's my issue with the Nynaeve story as well, is I care most about character. That is my main thing that I care about. And so when they basically elevated Swan's story in the first 3 seasons, or the first 2 seasons especially, this season her story kind of made sense, but they actually made her a bigger presence in the first 2 seasons. The way I interpreted that was them going, we know you love this character and we get it. We love her too. And we love her the same way you do. And then they killed her before her actual story begins. Like Swan's story begins with her stilling. Her character story begins with her stilling it. It's after that we get to see her have basically a redemption arc. She is so, that's when we get to know her as a person. And so what it felt like, the metaphor I used when I talked about this with Brie, it's like they were like, oh, we know you love peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Yes, and we get it. And then they handed me 2 slices of bread. And it's like, oh, you fundamentally misunderstand what a sandwich is. I don't know that I trust you with my food anymore. Like that's the feeling that I had at that point. Is like, oh, you killed her before her story starts, and now you're going to probably give that story to somebody else and going to be like, no, it's fine. Like, I care about the character, not the story, and I don't that's the thing. So that's what bothered me about that. The dead lesbians of it all, like that is the cherry on top of the cake. And as you said, Kevin, it is like, I don't think it can be disputed. The show actively marketed itself to sapphics, and apparently the show always knew they were going to do that. And that's not cool. That's just not cool. Especially, like, Rafe even said it in an interview, the history of lesbians dying on screen. Like, that's, if you have not been a person who has actively gone out of their way at some point in your life to seek out content with lesbians, you probably aren't aware of how fucking common it is, to the point that, like, a movie that people talk about, like a lesbian movie with a happy ending, is Carol. Have any of you seen Carol? Carol is a story. It's Cate Blanchett as a lesbian. It's amazing because Cate Blanchett, goddess, but she loses her child because she's gay, and so her husband keeps her kid away from her, but she gets to not die and gets to be with the girl, and that's considered a happy ending, even though she loses custody of her child because she's gay. That's a lesbian happy ending in movies because nobody fucking died. Like, that's how low the bar is. Nobody died. Nobody was crazy and nobody was evil. Those are the things that lesbians are in movies and television and books. And so, yeah, I don't think, who was it that said it? I don't know who said this, but somebody said, probably Brie, because Brie is the best person for words. But like, if you constantly are getting hit in the same spot over and over and over and over again, if somebody bumps you in that spot, even though they're not intending to, it's going to hurt. And I've literally, there's a couple of YouTube channels that I follow that just like, are upcoming movies with lesbians or upcoming whatever. And I've seen a couple of them post like, don't watch Wheel of Time. I know this is probably on your list. Don't. I'm like, yeah.
It's a double-edged sword of doing that, leaning into that. Like, it was a dangerous game to play, especially if you weren't planning to commit to it long term. Again, it's not the only it's not the only queer relationship in the show by any stretch of the imagination. But
no.
Yeah.
It's
was
certainly the most prominent and primary.
It was a selling point for a lot of people. Yeah,
I think the challenge here, right, is to also think about, and let's do a little bit of brainstorming and rewrite it. Because I think there's a couple things that I think we knew. If the moment they cast Sophie Akinato, I don't think they could have kept her. So it's either I think and I'm stepping back from the whole situation and let's rewrite from the beginning here, right? If they were going to do this with Swan, the option if they wanted to continue Swan's storyline would be very likely just to cast a less prominent actress. Right? That if they wanted to continue, and if we wanted a Swan to basically have her regular arc, right? That would have been one choice. The other choice would have been, because they did make this choice, to play up Maureen and Swan's relationship, right? And they could have chosen not to do that. Because very much like it's an afterthought in the books. They were friends that happened to be pillow friends at one point, but then Maureen goes on to love Tom and or kind of.
Oh yes, the most amazing romance in the books.
Yes,
that is the love story.
I had somebody in my comments say, I'm just really sorry when they did that because I'm going to lose my favorite romance in the books, and I don't know if they were joking. I don't know. It's just, are you serious?
I'm going to assume they were joking.
Uh-huh.
It's
One
so
of my
weird.
favorite romances.
Yeah.
As you
Oh my
know,
God.
Robert Jordan is known for writing really solid romance
He
stories.
writes amazing.
He
romance.
should have written romance novels, actually.
Yeah.
Well, so they could have chosen to not do that, right? So I think, and I'm asking this as a general question, right? Would it have been better? And I think you take Sophie Akinato at the time, so I don't think not casting her was as smart. I would have casted her because I would want high-profile actresses involved with my show. So the other alternative then would have been to not play that up. So would you rather have had them not make a high-profile lesbian romance a part of the show at all, right? Or would you have rather them done that elsewhere? Like, how would you have preferred to see that?
See, I will just say to you, the answer to this question is quite frankly that is a choice that lesbians are given a lot. Is either don't exist or have tragedy, and
Sure.
that's
Well,
yeah.
but in
And I
this
don't.
scenario,
That's okay. I understand that, but I do. It what frustrates me, and it's not just about this. It's just in general, like when talking about queer stuff, when talking about race, when talking about women stuff. If you take every example and look at it in isolation, you can probably justify every single one. It's when you step back and look at the pattern and you have to go, well, no, there's obviously something wrong here with the pattern. The pattern being that as a queer person, I have to choose between either a tragedy or lack of visibility at all. And I get that this is a specific situation. I get it. And obviously we can justify it, but I find that I like the question itself makes me go, well, this is fucked up. It's fucked up that has to be the question. And
that was my first reaction was, why does it have to be a zero-sum game? There had to have been a way.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
in theory, there was a way that they could have.
But I guess I'm saying I don't think that was the reason. I think the reason was because Sophie Akinato is paid a lot of money. That's the real crux of it. I mean, it's not.
And that is the crux of it. And maybe there isn't. Maybe there isn't a way to win this, but
that's not really a fair way of putting that, because I don't think it's zero sum in this game. I don't think the choice was that. I think the choice was, when I say justification, I'm not justifying the fact that we're eliminating. Trust me, that's not where I'm going with that. I'm just saying, in this scenario, they could not retain her, so they could not afford to keep paying her. She was the highest paid actress other than Rosamund on the entire show. They could not keep her. Okay. So it was either write her off in some other way, right? How do we move on from this character? And so that's where I'm trying to say, what could they have done differently that would have made,
and it's literally a question I don't want to deal with, because the idea that that's a choice that has to be made, it angers me. Like, it angers me that that's a choice. Like, yeah.
Well, fair enough.
It's literally where I'm at with that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep, that's fair. An answer that is an answer.
So, right, going forward, right, what do we think, assuming we do get a season 4, do you think, and Kevin, you kind of hinted at this, do you think that they're going to give what was Swan's arc with teaching Egwene, if that's ends up, I think they are probably still headed that direction, right? Do you think that becomes Lyanna?
I think it might be a combination. I'll let you go, Jane. I've been talking a lot.
No, because I've also been talking a lot, but I had been assuming Lyanna, and I've been talking about it as Lyanna, and to be quite, this is no dig on the actress who's playing Lyanna.
Yeah, I agree.
I think she's great, but I don't like the idea of giving it to Lyanna, just because I know that, but for myself personally, because I love Swan as a character, it would piss me off. Like, I'd be watching Lyanna being like, no, that's supposed to be Swan. And I won't be able to engage with the story. And it's not going to be her fault at all. It's just going to be that with me. But a few people in the comments of the video, where the Swan therapy video, said, what if it's Varen? And I think I like the idea of it being Varen. I think I could get past it. Yeah.
Yeah, I
agree.
Actually like that idea a lot, and it makes sense, especially when you think about where Varen's arc ends up. Having a deeper relationship between Varen and Egwene makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And it won't feel like as
So,
much of a
yeah.
replacement. Like it won't feel like we took
Yeah.
one stilled woman and replaced her with another stilled woman.
Yeah.
Like it won't feel like that.
Well, and I think that with Varen, I feel like that role already has been earned. You know what I mean? Because we've seen so much of her, like we've seen Varen playing to a certain extent like a counseling type of role, like when she was talking to Moraine in season 2, when she's like, you can't do this by yourself. People are going to help you whether you like it or not, and you need to figure out what the fuck you're going to do. So we've already kind of seen that. I freaking love Mira Sayel as Varen.
Yeah.
I want to see more of her. I want to see a lot more of her.
Yeah.
And I think that Lyanna has a place, I think. One of the things that I liked about Lyanna's arc in the books was her sort of shedding sort of that persona she had as an Aes Sedai and as a keeper, and like remaking her choices. She like really kind of grabbed the situation. I don't want to say like making lemonade out of lemons, but she really took that opportunity to kind of reevaluate what she wanted out of her life. And so she really went and kind of leaned into her heritage as a Damani woman, with sort of the cultural kind of like sex pot kind of thing. Not that I necessarily want to see that part of it, but sort of like reconnecting with her heritage, and then also kind of rethinking who she wants to be as an Aes Sedai. She changes Aja's when she's able to channel again. So, and then we also have a stilled person that Nynaeve can work on and then heal the stilling, which is an important thing that we need to have. So, like, we'll still have that as well. So, yeah, I think that there's still a place for Lyanna, but it's not going to be as big a role, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. The idea of it being Varen, I think just for me personally, it would be different enough that I think I could not, because it's so unfair. I know it's not Lyanna's fault, but I know that I'd be watching it being like, like that would be me the entire time,
I think
hissing at her like a cat.
They've set up Varen to be far bigger of a part of this, and I think it.
Yeah.
Because everybody likes Varen, but if they follow Varen's book arc, she pops in and out of the story too often, right? This keeps her. She'd basically be taking on the role of Sheriam.
Yeah,
is what she would be.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I was going to say that.
Yeah. So I like that, although it losing Varen's interaction with everybody else, right? Having her be stuck in the equivalent of Saladar, right?
Yeah.
Which they did set up, by the way. There are some things like I think Saladar will be in tier, but
Okay.
Oh,
Yep.
that's an interesting.
yeah, no, I think it will be. And I think we will. I wasn't sure if they were going to do the Rebel Aes Sedai thing. I think they absolutely are at this point, because I don't think there's any world in which that crew goes back in with after what happened.
Yeah, absolutely not.
That's one thing I will give them. They pulled off the coup to me in a very... Because actually one of the things I struggled with in the books was believing that could have come to Aes Sedai fighting each other.
Right.
Like, it just didn't... It didn't feel like that. I couldn't visualize how that could have happened. Having seen this, I think there's no way in which, right? Like, it just shows the stupidity on... While it was good craftiness from Elida, the long-term thinking here was dumb. Like, what were you expecting to happen?
Yeah.
So
It's all short-term gains, yeah.
yeah, like, so any case, I think that was set up and done well. I do have one other question, though, that I would like to hear an answer on, because I have not heard a satisfactory one from anybody. How is it? Obviously, we know Alviarin, if she is Black Aja in the show, could have killed Swan, right?
Yeah.
However, at that point, she was not being openly Black Aja. So there must have been a justification in everybody's mind that allowed Alviarin to actually kill Swan. And to my knowledge, they interviewed her and they voted, but that does not mean they had a trial, right, to establish that she's a dark friend and they could kill her.
Okay, because I say they accused her. They said that she had been determined to be a dark
Correct.
friend. Like it had already been. that was the
Convicted,
justification
yeah.
that I thought, that she'd been convicted.
Yeah,
of.
that was what I had. She had been accused of being a dark friend, and regardless of what the outcome of the vote was, if let's work under the assumption that Alviarin isn't Black Aja, if she legitimately believed that Swan was Black Aja, she would have been able to use the power as a weapon against her.
Mm-hmm. Well, and again, they set that up with Elida earlier, but I even
Yes.
had questions about whether Elida could have done that, right, at the time. Now, again, you can go back in the reading and change. Brandon Sanderson wrote that differently than Robert Jordan did. And there was actually a discrepancy. If you go back in the books, the way that three oaths are...
Yeah, they change a little bit.
Yeah, they change. So
A little bit, yeah.
Because otherwise
I mean,
you couldn't go in offing Dark Friends with the one power,
Yeah.
right? But then again, you could. So I just was curious I thought that was a little premature. So that was the part that irked me probably the most. And I get stuck up on the rules of the story because to me,
you're
the
a
rules
nerd.
but the rules establish the reality and what's possible. And if you break your own rules consistently, then it becomes like it's not a story that's easy to follow because it seems like they can just do whatever whenever. And
Well,
that's
I
where
think
Game of Thrones fell apart to me.
Yeah.
So it's
There
when they
was-
started doing that.
There's been precedent set in the show that the one power can be used as a weapon against Dark Friends. Elida did it.
Well, that's what I just said.
And we later found out that she wasn't Black Aja, so...
Well, we didn't necessarily confirm that, but we know
Well,
that.
I mean, it was the assumption on the part of the storyline based on Swan's reaction to the whole thing and whatever else was that Elida was, in fact, not Black Aja.
Yeah.
She was able to kill Amiko. So, and I don't remember if in other parts of the show somebody used the power to kill Dark Friends.
Alana with her ice dives.
Yeah.
Alana laid down her ice dives.
Yeah. So, there's been... When you're talking, if you're talking about the rules in the show seem very clear that the one power can be used as a weapon against Dark Friends. So, to me, it wasn't even a question because that's already been established, to my mind.
Well, all right. We are at time. I think next week will be a good topic too. I want to spend, if you guys are good with this, spend a little time talking about season 4 and what that might look like, and ultimately also, are we going to get it? Because there are some interesting things to discuss around that. Some, I wouldn't call it insider knowledge, but some perspective from the inside we'll give it on what will happen and whether the show will get picked up and by who and how. So we can talk about that next week. There's a tease for you.
Ooh.
A little moose boosh.
Moose boosh.
So yeah. Jess, you want to get us the fuck out of here?
I'll take us the fuck out of this shit. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on Tar Valon After Dark. We hope you had as much fun as we did arguing about stuff in the show. As always, new episodes drop every week on TVAD Tuesday, except for when they don't, and usually they don't. Make sure that you follow us on Twitter and Blue Sky at Tar Valon Dark. And if you want to support the podcast, and obviously you want to do that, you can check out our Patreon at patreon.com/TarValonAfterDark. You can rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Audible, and you can rate us on Spotify. You just can't leave a review. You can also go to Currencia.co/TVAD and use promo code TVAD to buy various and sundry queer pieces of merchandise, and a cut of that does come back to us to help keep the lights on here at the Thirsty Tinker. Thank you so much for joining us here at the aforesaid Thirsty Tinker, and until next time, keep it real.